Okay, so here we are again talking about drawing boxes, and in this tutorial we're going to talk about using two-point perspective. So two-point perspective is a little bit different from one-point perspective, but again we're going to be kind of thinking about drawing within a circular field of view. And this is two-point perspective. We're going to have a horizon that's similar to what we had in one-point perspective, but now on the horizon, instead of having a central vanishing point in the middle, we're going to have two vanishing points, one kind of at each end of the horizon. So two-point perspective is really, I think, the perspective that most people find easiest to draw in. And the primary difference between one-point and two-point perspective is that in two-point perspective, we now only have two types of lines. So recall that in one-point perspective, we had three types of lines. We had vertical lines, horizontal lines, and perspective lines. And the vertical lines were always orthogonal to the horizontal lines, and vertical lines were always parallel to each other, and horizontal lines were always parallel to each other. So in two-point perspective, we now only have vertical lines and perspective lines. So I've started drawing a box here with a vertical line, and now I drew the two perspective edges and I'm finishing the vertical edges. So what characterizes views in two-point perspective, at least for simple boxes, is that you will typically see the vertical edge of a box kind of at the front of the viewing plane. And if you recall, in one-point perspective, you would actually have usually a face of the box that was that appeared square, if in fact it actually is square, to you. Whereas now we're looking at kind of the edge of a box. So if we drew the face of the box in two-point perspective, there would be no edges to show up as moving toward the vanishing points on the horizon. So just to recap, the vertical edges stay vertical and parallel to each other, and all other edges appear in perspective. And so if you want to kind of follow along with me here, I'm just going to draw a couple more boxes, and this box that I'm drawing now is pretty far from the vanishing points and from the horizon, and so you'll actually kind of see that the farther away from the horizon and the vanishing points that you get, even if you do stay within the circular field of view, kind of the more distortion of the box you'll get. So things will look least distorted when they appear along the horizon, more or less anywhere along the horizon. But again, as you get closer to the vanishing points, even on the horizon, you might see something that looks a little bit more distorted. So I'm going to try to finish up this box that I'm drawing here, kind of far away from the horizon, just so you can get a sense of, what a box that's farther from the vanishing points looks like. And then I will draw one more box behind the central box that I started with, and finish everything up by drawing some cutout lines with the fine point Sharpie, or kind of the standard Sharpie with the larger conical tip. Alright, so now that I've finished my 3 boxes, I'm going to finish up the drawing by adding my cutout lines. And so I'm, trying to practice not using the straight edge as much, so I'm going to try to add the cutout lines by hand. And the nice thing about the sort of fatter tip Sharpie is that it gives me the opportunity to kind of clean things up or adjust the thickness as needed if I can't exactly trace over the nice straight edges of my box. So again, with the cutout lines, what you're tracing over are kind of the outermost edges of the box, or the sort of edges that bound the planar representation of the box. So you'll see here as I do this edge, I'm not doing that perspective edge, the 2 perspective edges above it, because those are kind of contained within the bounds of all the lines that represent the box. Okay, so there you have it. There are a few boxes drawn in 2-point perspective with cutout lines. You should try it out for yourself now and try drawing a bunch of different boxes above and below the horizon, in front and behind each other. Okay, happy sketching.